gonna get that on camera, right? We gotta get this right. The third splash, bro. We're still taking applications, don't worry.
Still plenty of time for splashing there. The Warriors are boogieing down by the bay, while the only thing going down in Cleveland today is LeBron's banner, with the King having departed for Los Angeles. And even that was interrupted by weather, but you know what they say. When it rains, it pours. Belly up for another round of free agent fever here from our Atlanta studio. Matt 3D, GA right there. A couple more reported signings to get to later on. Plus, we'll offer up some absurdly early Western Conference power rankings. First, though, the buzz about Cuz. Let's bring in Mark Spears, who had some fascinating details about how DeMarcus Cousins and the Dubs got together on a one-year deal in his piece for The Undefeated. Mark, appreciate the time as always. You paint a picture of a player disillusioned about the market for his services after receiving no offers on the first day of free agency. How did he get from that moment of clarity to calling the Warriors?
Well, it's certainly a tough free agent market, and you also have the Achilles injury, which either probably made teams hesitant or not interested. But you're also talking about a guy who averaged 25 and 12 and 5. That's Hall of Fame numbers, you know. And so it certainly had to be humbling, put him in an emotional place. And I think he decided, you know what, I'm going to take this into my own hands. I'm going to play 1 year, prove that I'm healthy, get back to being Boogie. And he called the Warriors. Perhaps he may have called some other teams, but he wouldn't go into detail about that. Called the Warriors, which was certainly a surprise phone call for Bob Myers, the GM of the Warriors, and ultimately talked to KD and Steph and Draymond, and decided that, you know, he was going to come to the Bay Area, which is still stunning news for Warriors fans and NBA fans.
An amazing turn of events. You also wrote that Pelicans GM Dell Demps had already informed Cousins that New Orleans wasn't planning to re-sign him. Does that mean at any cost, not even a short-term offer to see if Cuz could get back to form?
Yeah, well, he wouldn't go into detail, or I wouldn't say wouldn't. We didn't go into detail about that. Obviously, you have a certain finite time to talk about things, but he basically said that he did speak to the Pelicans, but no formal offer was made. And so obviously there's probably semantics on what conversations took place in the past and this, that, and the third. But he said that he was told that he wasn't wanted back there.
And Spears, with that being
which
said,
is a key thing. Like you could talk about contracts and what was offered and this, that, and the other, but he specifically said that he was told that they didn't want him.
And Spears, with that being said, we know he's a talented player. How much of his history had a lot to play in this for the Pelicans?
But here's the thing. I'm going to throw it back at you, 3D. What did he do bad in New Orleans?
Nothing. That's why most of us are so shocked that they didn't offer anything. Because we know the Achilles injury is one thing, and it may take you a while to get back to form, but is there something you may have found out behind closed doors we don't know why they offered him nothing?
This is the one thing, and my family's from New Orleans, and I know New Orleans inside and out. GW Finn, shout out. Go eat there. But the people there loved him. He did more in 1 year for the community than most guys do in entire careers for the Saints or the Pelicans. He had a comedy show where he raised money for charity days after blowing out his Achilles. He had a Santa Claus event in New Orleans giving gifts to underprivileged kids. So, I mean, he got the community to love him real quick. He played his heart out. They're actually 9-1 in their previous 10 games when he got hurt. Pelicans were playing good ball, so I'm sure there had to be a lot of hurt feelings because he put monster numbers up for him. There was no issues. I guess if you had to find a knock, technicals, right?
Right, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
and he actually told me he was at a point where him and Coach Gentry, who he got along with and loved, told him, you're not going to win. So he said he was actually trying to start talking to referees more to try to find a common ground. And it wasn't really working, but he was trying. So I really don't what happened in Sacramento happened in Sacramento, but I think getting traded to New Orleans changed him a lot. And there's really nothing big that anybody could say that he did bad in the Pelicans uniform.
Spears, talk a little bit now moving forward. Obviously, the 800-pound gorilla in the room is still going to be the Achilles. And I know that DeMarcus has talked about trying to be ready for camp, but have you had a chance to talk to medical people, whether it be on the staff or what have you, that see a scenario where that is possible, plausible, and would they even want him to try to get back at that point? Or is this a scenario where they're hoping that maybe by All-Star break he can become integrated into that rotation?
Well, in May and yesterday, he was adamant about the fact that he'll be ready for training camp. And I know people probably think that's crazy based on the injury, and I understand that concern. You watch his videos that he is posting. He's running on a treadmill. It's different than running in a basketball game, but he's back on the court doing some things. So he's competitive. He's adamant about being back. But then, once he signs with the Warriors, the big question is, what do the Warriors doctors say? What does Steve Kerr say? What does Bob Myers say? He's going to a place where he doesn't have to rush to get back, where he could be conservative. The Warriors always err on the side of caution of injuries. They won't want him back 100%. They'll want him back 110%. So they'll give him the opportunity and perhaps maybe even tell him, no, you're not playing, and they may have to, because he's such a competitive guy. And I know he's chomping at the bit to compete, to be a part of a winner, to play with the Hampton Five, that I know he'd probably go out there at 80. But we'll see soon what the Warriors think, and ultimately they'll probably have to make a collective decision on when he will play.
Mark, obviously, as a team, you just don't get this opportunity very often where an all-star caliber player calls up and says, hey, I'd like to play for your mid-level. At the same time, there is the injury situation and when he'll come back and the uncertainty of all that. And there are other names out there that perhaps the Warriors would have considered with that mid-level money. Was this an absolute no-brainer for Bob Myers and the Warriors, or did they have to consider who else they might have been able to bring in for the same dough?
Now, if a millionaire walks down the street and sees $100 laying on the ground, does he leave it there?
No, we got extra $100, boss.
Hey, ask them two dudes next to you with all that money. They're going to pick up that 100. And that's what the Warriors did. Bob Myers saw this odd area code from Alabama, picked up the phone, probably had to think twice. He might have had to put him on FaceTime to make sure it was the right guy. I can't wait to hear what Bob Myers had to say. But, hey, you get him for the mid-level, Jesus, that's the greatest mid-level signing in the history of the NBA.
And Spears, real quick, that conversation that Bob Myers had with Steph Curry and Draymond and KD, how much of being around the Olympics and All-Stars, so they could say they know Cousins and Bob, we can bring him in and he's not going to be a deterrent in the locker room?
It's certainly huge. The four All-Stars have spent significant time with him. The one thing that Cuz said that stood out to me is that Steph was ecstatic. He was surprised how ecstatic Steph was that he was coming to the Bay, how happy he was. And that, along with KD, and KD told me the winning culture and the team camaraderie is something that pushed him over. Draymond talked to him while he was in Greece. It's kind of like the Hampton Five thing all over again that convinced KD to come. So were there some other teams involved? Cousins wouldn't say. It's been speculated, but you got the champs, man. You got those cool cats to play with, those talented cats to play with. And this guy has dealt with so much losing. He missed the playoffs. Why not go from one extreme to the other and have a chance to compete with a championship with some fellow future Hall of Famers?
Mark, we were Equally ecstatic to have you on to bring us inside those conversations and take us inside the decision.
See,
for
but you guys put that ugly picture up of me, and you could have had me like my live handsome face on there, man. You know, I got my boys texting me, ha, and all that.
Yeah. Mark, have your people send us a new picture.
We need a new picture, Spirit. We're going to take care of you.
That bio,
yeah, we need a new picture of you.
I could have set my glamour shot.
Next time we'll get that on. Appreciate it. We'll see you in Las Vegas, okay?
All right, peace.
Mark Spears from The Undefeated with us. It is not very often that a guy 9 years into his NBA career with 4 All-Star appearances under his belt, including a selection just last year, is likely to make his very first playoff appearance. But that's the scenario with DeMarcus Cousins moving forward next spring with a team that is the prohibitive favorite for a 4th championship in 5 years.
Well, I'll go back to my question to Spearsy about something had to go on behind closed doors, GA, because everything he just said, I had heard that all the things he was doing in the community, giving back, and the fans fell in love with him overnight. So I understand the injury is one thing, Jay, but not a one-year deal, not something you don't offer him for all the talent, 25 and 12 and 5, just to walk out the door. The injury is one thing again, people, but if the guy had really changed his stripes and doing all the right things, how do you just let that walk out the door for nothing?
David Aldridge reported that after he suffered the injury back in January, at some point during his rehab in the spring, the Pelicans came to him about an extension, and at that point, he and his agent declined. They wanted to test the market moving forward. So there's a little bit of a gray area on there not being an offer. It just wasn't forthcoming when free agency came around.
Yeah, and I had heard that there was a 1-and-1 offer, but it was a team option on the second year.
Right.
And listen, it's a significant injury. And that's my point about the injury. Listen, there are scenarios where we don't know if he'll still play this season. You know, all the optimism, and you're going to say all that stuff, and he believes it, I'm sure, and hopefully he does play this year, but there's still no guarantee. If you just look at the history of guys who've had that injury, Kobe being the last significant guy that we know of who's had it, albeit he was a little bit older, but I think it took him 8 or 9 months to get back, and he's got a well-renowned work ethic in terms of his passion and commitment to his body. If Boogie is on that path, then, God bless him, and hopefully that does happen. But we still don't know. And so, to me, it's not so much that he signed with Golden State. To your point, he didn't have a lot of takers.
Right.
Even at this number, he didn't have a lot of people that were willing to risk, not just about all the stuff off the court. I think this was more about whether or not he could be an asset on the court this season. And so now he gets the opportunity in an environment where he doesn't have to be as productive to still possibly command a max contract. And think of it this way, too. If you're Golden State, they get an opportunity to have him in-house for a year. When they go into next year, Kevin Durant signed a 1-and-1. Klay Thompson's a free agent. Draymond will be going into the last year of his deal, and they'll be a year removed from their new arena. So, we don't know how all that's going to play out. I would assume Klay Thompson's going to want a max deal as well. And so this is in a lot of ways also it could be insurance for them moving forward that they can contend if they were to somehow lose a Kevin Durant and or a Klay Thompson after next season.
In terms of the basketball part, even if it all goes as well as it could possibly go, you've got to assume he's not going to put up anywhere near the numbers he did last year in New Orleans because they're not going to require that. Basketball-wise, what does it look like with all this talent on the floor?
Well, they would be really hard to deal with. Him being healthy from an offensive standpoint, you can make the argument he's the best center in the game. He's improved his ability to stretch it. He's a terrific passer, which, oftentimes gets lost. And I think much like we've seen with Kevin Durant, and a lot of great players, he will become more efficient and he'll become a better player, because he'll cut down the mistakes. One thing that happens when you're the guy on a team and that team's not as good, you don't tend to trust as much, and you tend to take more bad shots and have more turnovers because you have to do more. Once he fits in that environment, his shot selection is going to improve. I think his turnovers come down. So while his numbers may not be as significant, his value as a player may be even better because he was going to be a better basketball player from being in that environment. And he's got a high IQ. great culture. So in a lot of ways, this is, in his situation, is probably the best thing that could have happened for him, to go to that environment and have a chance to improve on an already very gifted skill set.
From day one, Steve Kerr will challenge him to be everything Jay just said, to be a better player. So on a day-to-day standpoint, when you're looking at Steph and Clay and Draymond, the way those guys work, there's no question you're going to fall in line and start working as hard. And the way they move the basketball, he's a great passer, like Jay said. I think everything falls into place. In transition, now he's in that spot where Bogut used to be, where Zaza used to be, where, JaVale McGee used to be. Being able to shoot the three and put the ball on the floor,
and post,
it fits into everything they need to do if they want to continue to win.
It's just a ridiculous amount of skill to add for the best team in the world.
How long does it take for him to get healthy?
That's the question.
How long?
And how does he play when he gets back? I mean, we've seen Rudy Gay come back recently.
That's another good one.
Our own Isaiah Thomas had essentially ended his career, the Achilles, so you just don't know.
Then, I'm already old, not for my Achilles, so it doesn't count.
But you already made old. You already had all the money.
You can still grill. I can still grill, though. Thank you, Max. Still grill.
That's the important thing. You can still grill.
There we go.
NBA comings and goings. The Nuggets have traded veteran Wilson Chandler to Philadelphia in basically a cost-saving move. They're up against the cap. Less shocking news today from Houston, where the Rockets have reportedly reached a one-year deal with former Rookie of the Year Michael Carter-Williams. MCW played 52 games with the Hornets last season. He's now entering his sixth season in the league, but joining his fifth NBA team. Wow. Meanwhile, the Wizards have added depth to their roster. Our David Aldridge tells us Jeff Green has agreed to a minimum $2.4 million deal to come aboard in D.C. Green was in Cleveland last season, where he played a huge role in the Cavs' road Game 7 win in the Eastern Conference Finals. And recall, this is a homecoming. He played his college ball at Georgetown. Tyreek Evans reportedly has a new NBA home and will head to the Eastern Conference for the first time. Evans has a one-year deal with the Pacers for $12 million. He averaged 19 points a game with Memphis last season. Just getting warmed up here on Free Agent Fever. Some perspective on LeBron's decision to join the Lakers is ahead from a man who told us it would happen weeks ago. Hall of Famer Gary Payton joins us in Utah and Sacramento with these notable rookies starting their pro careers. 29 points for Jaren Jackson Jr. That's how you get a career started. Marvin Bagley had a vicious dunk included in his 6 for 11 18-point night. Trae Young got him up for the Hawks on his way to 16 points, 20 field goal attempts. Likewise, Utah's Grayson Allen didn't shoot well, though he did have 8 boards and 7 assists. Always good to have Hall of Famers stop by the program, particularly when they get to come and say, "Told you so." Last month in an interview, Gary Payton said LeBron was Lakers-bound, telling the world that his son was already committed to L.A.'s Sierra Canyon School. So as we welcome the Hall of Famer Gary Payton to the program, GP, did anything about the LeBron announcement or contract surprise you?
Well, no, not about going to L.A. We all had a pretty good idea that that's where he wanted to go. His family always said that that they wanted to be in the sun, and he always had told him that his family is a big part of what he's going to do because they always been listening to him, and now he's going to listen to them. So we really, really thought about that. The contract is that he's done. He don't want to move anymore. This is his last stop. He just showed it. He showed it by signing a long-term deal and giving L.A. a chance to put some people around him. So he's just showing that, this is his last stop.
Yeah, and the long-term part is interesting as well. He signed with L.A. without the guarantee of another superstar on the roster, at least this upcoming season. How good are the Lakers right now?
Well, they're going to contend. Once you get him, people got to understand, they had won 27 games a year ago, and then this year they were 8+. So putting him on the team, you can go from 35 to 45 to 47 almost. You give him 12 more wins and be in the playoffs in the West. They're putting pieces together. They did a good job of getting Rondo with a guard that can help Alonzo Ball, Lance Stevenson who can guard somebody, JaVale McGee who can block shots and do things. Now he has to just have some players that's going to score with him and he can rely on, and he doesn't have to do so much work. I don't know if they're a championship team. I don't think that's the case. I think they're a playoff team.
And, Gary, with that being said, what advice would you give LeBron knowing that Cleveland's a small market from a media standpoint. Obviously, Miami has its market. But now you're going to L.A. They're expecting championships. What advice do you give him, knowing that you were the big man in Seattle going to L.A. with Shaq and all those things, but he's still the king of the hill? What advice to kind of get the Lakers back to championship?
All I can do is just tell him to be himself. He has to go in there with the same mentality that he's been doing for the last, 8 years that he went to the finals for 8 years straight. He has to go in there and make everybody else better. I think if he makes everybody else better, you got to think about it. You done came to a Western Conference that's loaded. The Golden State and the Houston. They're going to be good, so you're going to have to try to dethrone them, but you got to get players. This first year, you got to make them understand we're going to get better. We're going to be a 10-plus more team, win 40, 45, 46 games, and then you're showing the light. The next year, you're going to have to be in contention of winning the championship. His mindset has to be, I'm going to get this team to be the best team it can be. You get me the right players, we're going to win basketball games, and we're going to contend for a championship.
Gary, let's move over to the defending champs now, Golden State. What was your thought when they were able to go out and acquire DeMarcus Cousins? And when he gets healthy, what do you feel like he brings to the table?
Well, a great basketball player. We didn't think that he was going to be in this situation. Just taking a mid-level exception, and then all of a sudden now going with the Golden State Warriors. If he comes back right, he would have to adjust his game. DeMarcus likes to hold the ball at the top, shoot threes, and get to the bucket and spin and do things. But he got a lot of players around him now. He doesn't have to do that. I think he would have to get in on the block, face up guys, and be that man. That's the only thing Golden State missed was a big man. Now they got a true big man at 25 and 12 or 13 that can go. If he comes back from his Achilles injury and be the player that they want him to be and adjust his game and get down low and run with them, they're going to be an unstoppable basketball team.
GP, before we let you go, obviously Kawhi Leonard is still out there. If you're any team in the league willing to take the risk to go after him, even if it's only for 1 year, which team to do it?
Well, you would have to say either the Lakers or Philadelphia. Philadelphia will be a good team because you can take the risk. They'll still be good, and then you got to make sure that you can influence him to come back. This is a good team. We can win the East all the time. We can beat a lot of people. Then we can contend with the West, whoever in the West, if you be that player. And he has to bite into it. He has to be just almost like Paul George did. Oklahoma didn't think that they can keep him, but he got with Westbrook. Westbrook convinced him, and he stayed. I think the Lakers are the same thing. You put him with LeBron and a couple of more pieces, and he's at home, he's going to do that. But, San Antonio has to get the right players for him. And if the Lakers want to make that move and they want to keep him, they don't have any problems because he wants to be there. So that's the team that, has to make the sacrifice and say, are we going to give some of these young players away and some draft picks? And then think about, are we going to win a championship in year one or year two? And they got to make that decision.
That's the Basketball Hall of Famer and free agent prophet, Gary Payton. GP, good to talk to you as always. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, guys.
More coming up. Kawhi Leonard remains a Spurs, still under contract for 2018-19, and that's kind of all there is to report, but we'll talk about him anyway. Next.
What I call negative energy. He's a vampire of energy a little bit. He mopes, he has bad body language, he sometimes doesn't run back on defense, he yells at the referees too much. And he has some personality, what I call negative energy. But in the same sense, championship teams know how to handle that. And I think as I said, I think it's a magnificent move by the Warriors. There could be a problem with 5 All-Stars on the team wanting the ball. But it seems like they do a great job of when it's Durant's game, they let him go. When it's Curry's game, they let him go. When Thompson's making shots, they let him go. I don't see it being a major problem. I just think they made a little bit more step away from everybody else. The gap got bigger between them and everybody else.
It's a good problem to have, that's for sure. George Karl, who coached DeMarcus Cousins in Sacramento, with his thoughts on the deal that sends him to Golden State. A less enviable problem in San Antonio, where the Spurs have yet to figure out exactly what to do with Kawhi Leonard. Superstar talent, best two-way player in the league, doesn't want to be there, and is coming off a season in which he played just 9 games because of that pesky quadriceps injury. So there are a bunch of teams out there who have the option now of deciding to load up whatever they have in terms of assets to try to make a deal for Kawhi Leonard. Boston could be one of those teams. They certainly have the assets to do it. The question is, do you veer from the course you're on with all this great young talent in Boston, a team that came so close to the finals as it was, or do you use some of those assets to go after this superstar guy?
I think if you feel like you can re-sign him, I think you make a deal. And listen, what they did last year was incredible, absent Gordon Hayward, absent obviously having Kyrie down the stretch as well. And we all know how special a talent Jason Tatum is, and Jaylen Brown has proven to be a guy in his second year to make tremendous strides. But I think Kawhi Leonard is not just about you trying to secure your place in the East, but you also have to look at the competition. I think that gives them the best opportunity to dethrone a Golden State, to possibly beat a Houston team that's you would expect could continue to play at a high level. A Laker team now with LeBron that's going to continue to try to revamp, and it would allow you to keep Kawhi maybe from going somewhere else that could ultimately decide whether or not you win a championship.
Right.
So while you love that young talent, listen, they're still not at the level of Kawhi Leonard, and there's no guarantee that they get to his level. You're talking about a guy who was in the conversation as one of the 3 best players in the world. Mm-hmm. So that's something, if you're Danny Ainge, you have to look long and hard at. As much as you love your young talent, that Eastern Conference, like everyone thinks now that East is all about Boston, Philly's going to make moves to continue to improve. All these other teams that we're not talking about, Washington, Toronto, those teams are still going to be forces in that conference. It's no foregone conclusion while we all expect Boston to be there. They're coming in with a different mindset now. They're going to be expected to be the team. It's a little bit different when you have those high expectations on a young team.
Which would give you more pause? You're thinking about, trading away all these assets, be it draft picks or these young players. The quadriceps injury, which is no small thing, right. He's had it on both sides, 9 games last season, or the contract status where he can walk away for nothing next summer.
The contract status is first, and if I'm Danny Ainge, can I have that conversation I need to have before I make that decision, knowing that you don't want to talk to Pop? So that's what has my biggest concern, where when Carmelo wanted to leave Denver, he made it very clear, I'm going to be professional, I don't want to be in Denver. Kyrie, behind closed doors, talked to Cleveland, hey, I would like to be moved. Hey, Kawhi, can you please, Paul George, can you please tell me something? So now I'm being personal, I'm tired of hearing my camp this, my camp that. If Kawhi Leonard would have come out and just say, guess what, Pop, I want to be traded to the Lakers. And that's what I want to do. I'll stay professional. I'll work hard. I'm in shape, my legs together. Now, if I'm Danny Ainge, hey, Kawhi, if you really want to leave, can you have a conversation with me first? This is how good Boston is. This is what I built. This is what I did for KG. Right. Now, I can sell Boston on you, but if I cannot talk to you, how can I make that move? That's a bigger concern to me. There's no communication there.
Well, for the moment, Boston has not made that deal. Neither has Philadelphia. So I'll ask you guys to look at the Eastern Conference right now, minus LeBron James, for the first time in his career. And here's your power poll as things stand. You both have the Celtics on top.
Yep. I think the only thing we differ is just pretty much the order.
Yeah. Same teams.
Yeah, pretty much the same team. The order can change, who does what, and which other big guys. But, yeah, unless they make – if nobody makes any move, I think Boston still come out east.
I think on paper – you know what, though? Let's not sleep on a Toronto team that, with their young talent, could be better next year. Now,
no LeBron, right? No LeBron.
No LeBron in their way.
They basically won 60 games.
That's right. That's right.
So I don't think I'm just going to anoint Boston just yet. And, again, remember, Boston had home court. And as much as we raved about the talent of Jason Tatum, that young group was not a good road team in the postseason.
Right.
Nope. They won, I think, 1 road game this past postseason. That's not a championship caliber team. Like, you can't win it all if you can't win on the road in the postseason. And so that's another reason. And Danny Ainge's a smart guy. That entire brain trust there, they know that. Yeah, they should improve in year 2 or in the next year. But if you got Kawhi right, if he's mentally and physically ready, it'd be hard if you could put the deal together to not want to go after. What happens if you're Boston, you hold Pant, and he ends up in Philly?
In Philly, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that Philadelphia team, which is top to bottom as talented as anybody in the conference, but looked really inexperienced in the playoffs, suddenly they're a lot more talented and a lot more experienced as well. Yeah. Let's talk about the Wizards here a little bit, who appeared on both of your boards there. They got better today. Added depth to their roster with Jeff Green agreeing to a minimum $2.4 million deal to come aboard in Washington. Pretty good for the Cavaliers, mostly coming off the bench. Did start some, like everybody did, over the course of the season. And he was huge in that Game 7 on the road in Boston when he had 19 points. And they weren't done there because just reported by Jared Weiss, Dwight Howard, remember, was traded by Charlotte to Brooklyn, bought out by the Nets, is headed to the Washington Wizards, who, remember, traded Marcin Gortat this offseason as well. Dwight Howard is apparently about to become a Washington Wizard.
Well, hopefully very similar. We talked earlier about the Cousins situation, GA. Maybe this buyout late in his career maybe humbles him a little bit. Now you get around John Wall and Bradley Beal, knowing that now the old Dwight Howard the last couple of years, you won the ball on the block. That's not who you are at this point in your career. And going with that backcourt, you're going to get less shots. But if Dwight Howard comes rebounding, blocking shots, defensive-minded guy, I think he helps that team right away.
You know, they're the team in the Eastern Conference that has quietly made moves to bolster their biggest weakness, which was their bench. Jeff Green if Jeff Green's coming off the bench for them, that really makes this a much better team. Remember Austin Rivers as well. Gives them a legitimate third option offensively. He can play either guard position coming off a career year. And then the thing about Dwight, a lot of times he's at a point in his career where the system matters in terms of his ability to be effective. And he's going to play with an incredible passer, two bigs. Because you think about how good Marcin Gortat looked playing with John Wall.
Pick and roll.
And he's a similar – they're going to score similarly. I just think even at this stage, Dwight's a little better at it than Gortat. And a better defender and rim protector. So this could be a big get. That's why I'm saying, like, the East, like Bradley Beal and John Wall, they also look at, like, why not us? You know, we're close as well. And now they've gone out and made some small moves, but they could have a huge impact on the overall roster.
You know, for all the discussion about Wall and Beal and their relationship and their chemistry and whatnot, depth has been this team's biggest problem over the last few years. Dwight Howard added to the fold, essentially replacing his old Magic teammate, Marcin Gortat, in D.C. On the way, Paul George stayed put in OKC. How that shifts the balance of power in the West.
George is an unrestricted free agent at the end of this season. Oh, Paul George making a statement early. Oh, the sleight of hand, masterfully done by George. George measured. George scores. The three takes it all the way downtown and said, good night.
He told me all I want to do at the end of the day is win, and win at a high level.
George. O'Neal goes down. George. Oh, he's not human.
That's what it's called, being physical with the basketball, folks.
Oklahoma City makes a large statement.
If y'all didn't quite get it, let me say it again, I'm here to stay.
This is why you have to try. You have to try, because you don't get a chance to get a player this good that often.
This is a team, if they could get it together and add another piece and get things going, they could be the third best team in the Western Conference.
Okay, fine, make it angry. George, here we go, step back, three. He got it!
A year ago, nobody gave Oklahoma City any chance of keeping Paul George. None, zero. And he is now committing to stay there because they did all the right things to try and keep him there.
Paul George sticks with the Oklahoma City Thunder, and so that puts them where in the Western Conference? We have a difference of opinion.
Oh, yeah, we shake it up again.
And Greg Anthony, third or sixth? Third, fourth, fifth, excuse me.
Yes, I'll go first on this one, G. I think now with Paul George getting it out the way, no cloud over his head, is he staying or going? Now he and Russell on the same page. I guess the only question I have, I think Melo's going to be okay and stay where he is, too. Now with all three of those guys on the same page, Billy Donovan knows exactly what he's dealing with, GA. I think there's no bump in the road earlier. I think they finished 3.
I think they should be better than they were a year ago. But that they still have serious concerns. Remember, this was still a team that got knocked out in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they haven't made any big moves outside of being able to secure Paul George. They still have other concerns, a lot of inexperience outside of that core big 3. And so we got to see how that plays out. You know, Robertson comes back healthy, hopefully.
That's another one. That's another one, too.
But listen, I think it's going to be exciting to see them together, knowing that could be their core, that too, long term. But they're still probably a piece away from where I would want to say they are a legit contender to win the West.
Well, the other question for them is what happens with Carmelo Anthony because of their luxury tax situation. Their payroll is enormous. Well, there's some speculation there could be a buyout potentially, a stretch provision, something.
If you buy Carmelo out and you're not bringing in some other young pieces, because now
you're going to get worse.
Then there's no way you can continue with those other 2 teams. I think you have to figure out to keep Carmelo, and after the season, you figure out what you
And he's got to be better.
Yes, be better.
Good
at his worst season as a pro, but there are financial implications to that roster the way it's currently set up. All right, the LA Lakers, LeBron's there now. As we mentioned earlier, there's still not a guaranteed second superstar on that team. You kind of reversed them with Oklahoma City, the 2 of you, 5th or 3rd.
Yeah, my biggest problem with the roster is all the young talent. Until you can find me some more shot making, that lane's going to be clogged up.
Right.
With that starting lineup right there, until Lonzo Ball makes 10 threes and KCP, I love to death. Until KCP makes more threes, Ingram, he's shooting at 30%. It's like it's just not enough shooting right now for me to say this team could be a top 4 seed until they change the roster up a little bit.
But
they got that dude on that team.
There is him.
And he has a tendency to make a lot of other people better. And I think the challenge that's going to be presented to those young players that now that he's there, I think those guys are going to improve. And I think they're going to play better basketball. And don't discount the impact that Rondo is going to have, and Lance Stevenson.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think that he's a wild card in a lot of ways for that group. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a guy that he's proven he can score. He competes defensively.
He's only been good in Indiana so
far.
Yeah,
but I go back to him having an opportunity to be in that culture playing with. He's never played with a guy like LeBron.
Right.
You know, played against him.
But to that point, though, LeBron in the playoffs, 85% usage rate with the basketball. That means 4 other guys are standing around. Lance Stevenson standing around, Rondo standing around. They're not that effective.
But I don't think that happens because that again, we say 85% usage rate. It was a team that won 50 games. It wasn't a great roster.
Every team. I'm saying, but every time
the year
LeBron,
before when Kyrie was there, and the year they won it, it wasn't 85%.
And neither one of those guys are Kyrie.
Well, no, but Rondo is a world champ. And Rondo is a guy that's going to have the ball. Like LeBron, the whole thing with LeBron and that group this past season, he didn't trust them. And how could you trust them?
Right.
You know, like they had to go 7 to get through Indiana in the first round, right? They had to go 7 and win.
And he had to put ridiculous numbers in ridiculous minutes.
Yeah,
I'm not buying in LeBron's going to trust these young guys overnight like this, the way they haven't been out of the first, haven't even made the playoffs yet.
Well, here's the bottom line question.
You know what I mean? It's like that's so inexperienced. So
neither had Cleveland the year he came to Cleveland, they went to the finals.
But they still have Kyrie, though.
They still have Kyrie.
But I would say
bottom line question for both of you. Is this a transitional year for the Lakers to get to where they want to be, or is this a contender year?
Unless they make a trade for
Kawhi. Unless they make some more moves.
And that's why he signed for you.
Yeah.
All right, more coming up here. Clint Capella is among the free agents who still don't have a deal done this summer, where he and some others are most likely
going back to Houston
next season. Well, don't spoil it. The L.A. Lakers. More Summer League coming up here, starting with the Spurs and Hawks at 7 Eastern Time. Grizzlies, Jazz, followed by the Warriors and the Kings, and then it's free agent fever at 1 a.m. Eastern Time and 10 out west. DeMarcus Cousins tweeting to New Orleans, to the city and fans, a big thank you from Cuz. Short and sweet this time in New Orleans. Well, not that sweet.
Yeah, it was short. Now, yeah.
It was short.
Yeah, it's a little spicy in there now.
Yeah. It's like the cuisine there.
That's right. There you go. A little bayou spice to it.
More Fever again at 1 a.m. Eastern Time. Summer League games all night long. It is that time of year.
I love it. I love it.
About to get going. I got to go watch the young fella.
If anything gets signed, we'll have it for you throughout the season.